All right, and welcome to M Live here on NTV. My name is Ibrahim Karanja, and at this minute we get straight into our discussion. The discussion is tragedies on the roads, road safety, carnage, and remembering the victims. And today I have a packed panel, a panel of three that would give us a 360-degree dimension on everything road safety and road carnage, because I have someone from the NTSA. I have Dr. Duncan Kibogong, who is the Deputy Director, Road Safety and Strategies at the NTSA. I equally have Dr. Resila Onyango, and I have to apologize because in the poster that we sent out, we indicated her name as Rezalia, but the name is Resila, R-E-S-I-L-A. Dr. Resila Onyango, the spokesperson of the National Police Service, as well as Harun Maalim Hassan, the Executive Director, NCPWD, that is the National Council for Persons Living with Disabilities. And I'll start with you, Duncan. Yes. Like you said, on Sunday we are marking a day in remembrance of the victims of road crash. However, every other year, every other day, we keep reporting of surging numbers of people who have unfortunately lost their lives in road accidents. The numbers hitting thousands, at times 2,000. I was looking at some of the statistics. The latest I could find, perhaps you can bring me up to speed, the latest I could find was of March of this year. And that by January to March, we had already lost 974 persons in road accidents, only 3 months. So if I were to use, to check that in every 3 months, if I were to use 900, that would mean about 2,700 or 2,800 people in a year. So why are we still saying these numbers as they are? Is it that we are careless, or what exactly is happening?
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks for inviting us to your studios to talk to Kenyans and basically road users at large. Yes, I want to say that matters road safety or matters road traffic crashes is something which is very critical. And just to bring your viewers into this context, and I'll start with probably global statistics, is that we are talking about 1.35 million persons dying every year. In the global roads, 1.35, that translates to about 3,500 every 24 hours, every day, 3,500 globally. And when we talk about now the persons who get injured and others probably getting what you call permanent disability of one way or the other one, you are talking in excess of 20 million. In fact, figures estimated to be over 50 million. That is quite a huge figure. And here in Kenya, indeed, you've put your figures that averagely we are talking about 3,000 to 4,000. Actually, about last year we talked about 4,500 deaths were lost due to road traffic crashes. This is indeed unacceptable because, as I said, or I keep on telling people, this is something which is totally preventable. It is within ourselves. And what is happening is that it is largely behavioral in nature. We are talking about over 85% of the causes of road traffic crashes being because of me and you being careless, and indeed other Kenyans for that matter, or other road users. So this is why, as Kenyans and indeed as humanity, we need to work towards reducing these crashes. So yes, the numbers are high. We always say one life lost is one too many. In fact, the figures I've just quoted, we are not talking about a number. We are not talking about a book. We are not talking about a cup of tea. This is a life. They have faces. They have family. They are human beings. Even those ones who are killed, whether they're injured or killed or that kind of thing. So that's why, as government of Kenya, we are working with all our partners to work towards reducing road traffic crashes. In the next 2 weeks from now, we are launching our National Road Safety Action Plan, which we've done and bringing all the stakeholders. And this is a document which we've really done to make sure that it is inclusive, it has everyone's interest in it, and that it's in the best practice, so that we don't just make road safety a government problem or a government agenda. Indeed, yes, government, we do our part, and we did, and that's why you see the parties in front of yourself today, our whole government, and we work jointly. This is a war which can only be won by different parties when everyone is there.
So you're launching the National Road Safety Action Plan.
Yes.
And what is different from what we have? I mean, how different will it be from
One is
what
that
we are currently...
for quite a while, this has not been there. Most of the things or most of the actions have always been government-oriented, but we are saying it does not need to be government. It has to be multi-sectoral in nature, involving everyone, involving private sector, involving NGOs, involving development partners, involving the corporate world, you know, and it's broad-based. It's not just that issues of just doing one thing whereby we just do enforcement alone, just enforcement alone, but we need to have all the stakeholders play their different roles. So that is why, and it takes into context matters to do with the behavioral aspect of the drivers. It takes into context the issues to do with the road. It takes into the context the issues to do with the vehicle, and it brings all partners and all the stakeholders together. So that's what we'll be doing in the next 2 weeks. But just so that we bring into context the discussion of today, is that every third Sunday of every November, we have what we call World Day of Remembrance of Road Traffic Victims. This is a day set aside by the UN General Assembly now over 20 years back, that indeed we need to bring ourselves into saying, is it that all these lives lost, all these people injured, and all the families affected, we cannot just forget about them. We need to rally ourselves so that we move from the bad directions we've been moving into as a humanity. So in Kenya here, we'll be doing it in different areas. The main functions will be in Naivasha. You know, of course, Naivasha and Nakuru Road has been, the number of fatalities from our statistics is quite high, and we've seen some number of black spots. But the point is that we need to think and say, and really empathize with those people who have been injured and those who have been fatally injured, you know, killed. And today is that we always say, think, support, and act. You know, remember, meaning that you remember those ones who have died, those who have been. So remember, that is the theme. Support, because we need to support systems. Then act, meaning that we need to work towards reversing these negative trends in our society. Okay, and thank you very much. And what is your story? Because even before we get deep into this particular conversation, many would want to understand how did we get here?
Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for inviting us, and thanks to my fellow panelists for this important conversation. I think I came to this discussion for two important reasons, and I will put it in that context.
Sure.
One, my own story that led me to this wheelchair is through road traffic accident. And that transitioning itself is what I will be sharing. And then secondly, I'm now the Executive Director, National Council for Persons with Disabilities, a state agency mandated to promote and protect, you know, equal right and opportunities for persons with disabilities in this country. And the context of how disability is getting on rise, not from the traditional causes of disability previously.
The natural causes.
Yes, because of advancing medicines, the numbers are going down. You know, you hear less of polio now.
Sure.
You hear less of measles rendering people blind. But other factors like road accidents, you know, conflicts, you know, faults, those are the numbers that were, you know, making the numbers to go up. For example, if you go to Kenyatta Hospital here, there's a whole floor, you know, where victims are victims of road accident. And I was a patient there very briefly before I transitioned to National Spinal Injury Hospital.
Sure.
The bed capacity at the National Spinal Injury Hospital is very literally about 30. But literally 90% are people who are victims of road accidents.
Sure.
And those are the contexts that I want to really bring out in this conversation. So you know, world over, as Dr. has said, the number is bigger than what we have been told.
Sure.
And all of us, we have responsibilities, you know, whether it is government, whether it is individually you, we all have a role to play to bring these statistics down.
Because most of the times, because you're bringing a very interesting point, most of the times when it comes to road safety, we tend, I'm a road user, I'm a driver, we tend to leave the responsibility to government.
Yes.
You find that I will only observe the speed limit once I know police officers are just around the corner. or I'll stop overlapping, doing those minute traffic offenses when I know that the big brother is watching. Exactly. So as you're saying that it is a responsibility for all of us, perhaps you may want to speak to the viewer who has a mentality like the one I've mentioned on how they need to come in.
Exactly. You know, like in my case, I was fairly young that time, about 16 years ago, sometimes in 2007. And we were three in the car. And I was one actually who was driving. And my friend who was sitting next to me told me to wear a seatbelt. And he told me I'm fairly driving very fast. But because it's a rough road, and we're cruising about 50 to 60, I thought that's not a really, a speed. And because it's up north there, and it's quite hot and scorching, I told him that belt is too. That is the only conversation that I can remember. The rest is what I was told. Because immediately after there, we were driving down a slope, and then the front tire of our car burst. So the car rolled, and because I was not on a seat belt, the door opened, I was hauled out. My friends, because they were on the belt, hakuna mtu amepata any injuries. So I had terrible injuries all over. But under the scene of the accident, what my friend saw was blood oozing out of my head on the left side. But they have no idea that I had another terrible injury that made me, change my world all over. But because we were not so much sensitized on the first aid and how you respond to the first emergencies, the next car that came was a lorry. So they have to pick me up and make me to sit, in the front cabin of the lorry. And that must have damaged the entire of my back. If they would have known, they would have been away, Those are important conversations, day like this, or conversation like this, during the Sunday. We have to bring it out, that sometimes people need to be sensitized across the public, in schools, First aid, how does it have to look like, Maybe I wouldn't have been on a wheelchair, if maybe I would have been stretchered very well. Maybe certain things have been done. Those are the real things. So the responsibility is, if I would have heed the advice of the friend and pulled my seatbelt, could be the story is different.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the responsibility that we have taken. If my friends will have been sensitized on importance of road, first aid and how it is done, maybe I wouldn't have been on a wheelchair today. It couldn't be, So those are the important conversations that we need to really bring out, because sometimes the report that comes out, the fatalities, is death, mostly, but not following up what are the level of injuries. And what does that injuries mean to the individual, to the family of the person, to the general labor, labor force in this country? If you look at the population, the most active population usually between the age of maybe 15 to 50 or 45, maybe thereabout, and these are the most active population in the country. So if we don't really address the issue of road safety, watu wakikufa tunasahau. But if you become injured and paralyzed like some of us, what does it mean? It is
a permanent scar.
And are we prepared as a society, as a country, to receive even those with disabilities? Are our infrastructure, our services, conducive enough, or prepared us to now integrate into the society in our new form or lifestyle? Those are the hard conversations, because as a council, very recently when we introduced new registration system, we decided to introduce what are the causes of the disability, and we introduced accident, including even gunshots, so that we can track, how many people are becoming disabled, and what are the level of their disability, and most of them, they lose their job, lose their families. They get depressed. Sometimes not even the disability itself, is the depression that comes with that lifestyle they were not prepared in. So the conversation like this, we need to go out to all critical stakeholders and see to it that this is the fact that we have to contend with, and how can we really address all of us jointly.
Before I go to Dr. Rezila, I'm interested in finding out, because you've said you've introduced this particular clause which shows what is the cause of disability. What percentages are we having? Have you been able to break down the data so far percentages of disabilities that have been occasioned by accidents?
Yeah, it's a new thing that we have introduced, but in our database right now, there are over 600,000 persons with disability generally, not only on road accidents. I might not have exact figure on the road accident itself. It's something that we have just rolled out, but the number on the disability on the road accident is going up against, the traditional causes of disability, as I earlier said, because of, maybe health or
advanced
things like
practices.
Exactly. And it's also good to note out.
Yes, I'll come to you. Let's for opening comments. Let's get to Dr. Rezila Onyango, the spokesperson of the National Police Service. And there is a very thin line between what the National Police Service does and the National Transport and Safety Authority does in ensuring road safety. In fact, at some point, there was Kenyans were speaking about who is supposed to be on the road. Is it the NTSA officers, or is it the National Police Service officers, or is it a collaboration of sorts? So how do you partner as a National Police Service? It is your officers I see on the road every time to ensure that there is a reduction in road traffic accidents.
Thank you, Ibrahim and NTV for having the National Police Service on board for this very critical conversation. And just to appreciate what my fellow panelists have already mentioned, and to empathize with my fellow panelists that has gone through this real-life experience that is life-changing and very difficult to deal with. And to say that if I would be reading from the same page Dr. Kibogong was alluding to the National Action Plan, if it's the one that is going up to 2025, is it?
2027.
Okay. The way we work with NTSA is the lead agency on matters national road safety. But the National Police Service, we enforce the road traffic laws. So we work very closely with NTSA because unless we collaborate, this is one area where no single agency can succeed or be very effective. Without collaboration, you cannot be effective, whether we leave it to NTSA or the National Police Service. Sure. Yeah. So we work with them, we share data, we do sensitization campaigns, for instance, to sensitize the public, which is one aspect that my colleague, my panelist, this Malim, has brought up, that the sensitization is key. He's mentioned something that seems very simple, but it happens every day on our roads. You tell people to fasten their seat belts, they feel like you're wasting their times. And they even put it in a way to stop making noise in their cars. They fasten it so that they don't use it. And it saves lives. And to be honest, most of our roads are dangerous because of the human behavior. Most of the crashes, the errors are human-based. And not unless we change our attitudes as drivers and road users, not unless we will change our behaviors. The drivers change their skills, they change their knowledge on the road, they change their attitude. This carelessness and the dangerous driving will continue to claim lives of very innocent people. Yeah, so in a nutshell, we collaborate with NTSA very closely, and of course with other government agencies like KENHA, we have KURA, and many others that are involved in road safety. Yeah, thank you.
Duncan, she's saying, Dr. Rezila is talking about most of the accidents are as a result of human behavior and attitude. And from where I sit, there could not, or there can never be enough legislation to control human behavior or enough legislation to control attitude. Here we are speaking about the National Road Traffic Action Plan. I would believe there should be a plan to engage road users and the citizenry at large. Not to legislate human behavior, but to actually make them responsible. Take us through this action plan that you shall be launching and how it's going to be effective on that front.
Yes, as I said, the action plan, the National Road Safety Action Plan, has what I can broadly define or say to be 8 national priorities. And one of the priority areas you're talking about is something to do with what you call the behavior. And some of the actions which we deal around that behavior or would want to deal, as I said before, more than 85% of road traffic crashes, one or the other one, is associated with me and you and indeed all road users behaving badly on the road. And this behaving badly means that they are more at risk. They put themselves at a higher risk. And here we are talking about issues to do with speeding, for example. When you speed on the road, then the risk goes higher. Drink driving is another big risk factor. What my friend here, the Chief Executive Director, mentioned is the issue to do with not wearing a seatbelt. It's a behavioral issue. The seatbelts are there, but you don't just want to wear because you have your own feeling around the same. Issues of not putting on helmets for the riders, among as many others, including fatigue, including careless driving, reckless driving. So how we want to address some of those, some are within short term, others are long term. But largely speaking, the actions around behavior is in this priority area touches on issues to do with, and enforcement comes a big part of it. And as in the action plan, the issues around enforcement is something which we need to enhance as a country. Of course, this is a progressive, including use of technology. And this is one of the things we'll be working as a country to improve. So that issue to be speeding, among as others, we work with behavior, and among as many others, capacity building. The second part is the public education campaigns, which we are currently running. Indeed, we are really privileged to be in a studio like yourselves and talking to the masses out there, and we wish that this thing happens virtually every day, and we'll be here virtually every day. You know, if you call us 3 times per day, we'll be here, because it's important to teach the people and tell them what needs to be done right, and we can break it down to smaller issues, you know. Then the other aspect also on that is the issue to do with the schools. We are currently working with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to institute or to incorporate road safety into the national curriculum, so that it becomes part and parcel of the younger generations, because we want the future generations to be more effective. Driver training, testing and licensing. You see, as they say, of that behavioral aspect, a big part comes with the driver. And majority of us are drivers. We're not just talking about PSV drivers. You know, at times when someone talks like a driver, you, Ibrahim, you talk that you are a journalist, but you are a driver, you know. Sure. Yeah, so all of us are drivers, and how you behave there is very critical. So the whole aspects around how you behave as a driver is very critical, including your knowledge and skill as a driver. And that's why we have all the program around driving schools, and whereby we want to improve on how to do. In fact, as a matter of fact, in this particular action period, we are trying to work towards automation of driving tests, so that it's not just physical the way we're currently doing. And you know, we have different, you see the super highways we have currently, including the Deca roads and all that kind of thing. We need to ensure that our drivers move towards getting, and not just the physical act of driving, but even the mental capacity around the same, including the behavioral aspect, including the soft skills. How do you behave in the road? You've seen people just driving. Driving is not just about moving a car. There are other things which go with it, including courtesy and all that, what it goes with. So I've talked about that. Then the other aspect, of course, is the whole range of issues around, as I said before, around behavior, about education, and we have a number of it. So we have 8 priority areas around the same. But of course, the aspect to do with the infrastructural safety. Indeed, in this action plan, we've identified areas which have notoriously caused most of the crashes, and we'll be working with the road authorities, Kenya, Kura, Kera, and the county governments to address, so that some of the roads which every time you hear of a crash, for example, in say, for example, Camp Kiama Q, what you need to work towards treatment. We've done it in the past with Salga, and you've realized that it has become fairly silent. And this is
because of the wall that was built.
Yes, because and these are the things which we are working towards, focused interventions to reduce number of road crashes. Border is a big problem. Indeed, our statistics, and the National Police Service are the people, or rather the agency providing us with the statistics, and Dr. has mentioned, is that we were talking about 5% road traffic crashes in 2005, 2008. Currently, that is due to border 5%. Now it has risen to as high as 38%. And we are saying we need to have, and this is why we have what you call the rules are, and you talked about rules are fairly in this country, rules and laws are fairly,
They're sufficient.
They're sufficient, yes, actually, that's the word. They are fairly sufficient. What we need to do is enforce the same. And better still, you don't need to enforce the laws. If me and you behave well, then we don't need a stick over our head. And that's what we're saying. We need to move away from this aspect of saying road safety is a government responsibility, it's a police responsibility. You need to make it a personal responsibility. But either way, as government, because we do all these conjunctions knowing that we have very good road users out there who obey, but equally they are on, you are not safe until the next road user or the next driver or the next motorist behaves well. So that's why we will work together. So indeed, the National Road Safety Action Plan will address most of those issues, including, and one of the is the collaboration aspect. And the executive director here talked, my good friend here, mentioned the aspect to do with the post-crash care. How do you ensure that in case of a crash, indeed, most of the time we try to prevent, but just in case a crash happens, which it happens, how do you handle those ones who have gotten injured? I've always said that, God forbid you get a crash. God forbid you get a crash. You want the person who will pull you out of that crash to be an expert on first aid issues and removes you fairly well, because you are not, even if you are a top surgeon, you cannot pull yourself out of that car.
Unfortunately,
yes. That's why we need to ensure that the community, the people around, the first responders have the very basic of how to do it. And that is the direction we are moving into as we move along.
I'm sorry for cutting you short, but it's important to bring out this because this is a discussion, sort of a call to action.
Correct.
Unfortunately, most of the times, when you hear of crashes on the road, the very first people to get to the scene get there to loot. That happens in the country, and we cannot say it does not happen.
It does.
However, back to you, Duncan. Even as you're streamlining through the action plan, there are loopholes that we have seen before. Loopholes that you've talked about, driver testing and driver training and testing. There are loopholes on that particular front where you'd find one circumvent the process to get a driver's license. It has been spoken about in the press. The NTSA has responded to it a couple of times. So how are we sealing these loopholes as well? Because you find some of the vehicles that are unroadworthy still on the road with clearance from the agency responsible for this. So what is the remedy to these loopholes that we are first seeing before we move to the next step?
Yes, I will go first because some of the things are historical. NTSA has been in existence in less than 10 years. In fact, I think we came into existence 2014-15 through an act of parliament in 2012 actually. So what I'm trying to say is that there are historical issues about persons who probably beat out the system to get driving license. That one is something which you've also noted. And actually people even confess that indeed I got my driving license without having to go to a driving school. And one of the ways and this is what you're talking about, the Traffic Act stipulates that periodically you're supposed to go for what you call refresher training and even retesting. And this is one of the things we want to institute, so that one, we get into those ones who have not actually done that particular, and that the test now subjects them to that. The second part is the retest itself, so that the refresher, so that those ones who have not done will now go through. This is one of the things we are currently, and indeed that action plan speaks of the same. On the second part is what do you do going forward so that we don't get, and this is the role we are working as NTSA, and we are very strict on this. And indeed, we've had people in the past, even drivers, having to lose their license because they've had some different categories, endorsed on their driving licenses. But moving forward, one of the things to ensure that we really standardize training. For a very long time, we've never, for should I say over 50, 100 years, even before independence, is that we've never had a standardized curriculum for driving. So if you go to driving school A, you're subjected to what they think is good, and C. And this is one of the things, is first standardize our driver training, just the way school children
have a particular curriculum.
So that's why NTSA, we've come standardized curriculum in terms of how long do you want to be trained, how long if you want to become a rider, if you want to become a matatu driver, how long. So they stipulated time, and not just time alone, but content in terms of modules and what are you going to do, you know, and that's one of the areas. But moving forward, so that I finalize exactly what you're talking about, is that we're also working towards, and this government has talked a lot about moving towards digitizing and better still use of technology. And that's why, as I said, we have begun currently working towards automating driver testing from theory perspective as we proceed to have practical. Ibrahim, probably you've traveled out of the country, that the use of technology removes the human interface, so that I don't need to fail you or pass you based on some circumstances, but the system will just clearly shows that, and you've seen it, and something which works.
Sure. We need to take a break, but before that, let me hear from you, Harun. You are here, you're wearing two hats. One, as the chairperson of the National Council for Persons Living with Disability, and two, as having gone through a road crash before. When such an action plan is in the process of, being effected, and you, with the knowledge that it has actually road crashes have led to the increase of persons living with disability, in your own words, you're saying disabilities from traditional causes have reduced, but disabilities from road crashes are increasing. How are you partnering as the NCPWD with agencies such as the NTSA to ensure that, look, whatever you're going to give to the public is something that will be beneficial across the country?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibrahim. Actually, we do partner on that particular day, and we started, I think, 2 years ago, and we marked it at National Spinal Injury Hospital, trying to sensitize not only death, what accident can bring, and that is disability. But I just want to tell you, or to tell our viewers, that the passengers or the drivers are one thing, but the fatalities are higher on the pedestrian side. If you look at their report, the number of those who are crossing or pedestrians, those are the highest casualty. But if you interrogate very deeply, what of those pedestrians with disabilities? People who have difficulties crossing the road. Either they have crutches, or they're using wheelchair like me, or somebody's blind and somebody is holding him or her by hand. What does it really mean? Well, we try to focus so much on the road accident and how we can minimize, and most of it are behavioral. If you go to Tanzania, here Karanja, Tanzania, they tell us Kenya mko na haraka mingi sana. That's why if you see even a traffic light and there's no car coming, you just consciously you will have just waited until, but you find yourself just driving, and then you find a pikipiki just coming from nowhere, and you cause unnecessary. So I think while we try to address those behavioral things to reduce the number, but the focus should be the pedestrians and those who have already acquired disability. To have a disability is a very expensive lifestyle. First, if you're born with disability, you don't know what you lack.
Sure.
Because you are already accustomed to that life. But then when you're fully formed, working, maybe all of a sudden, to accept is one difficult thing. But if you accept it, then the cost that comes with disability is enormous. You buy a wheelchair, you buy a crutches, or you're amputated, you have to look for prosthesis, you lose your job, you lose your income.
The socioeconomic impact is
and
such.
Then it becomes so frustrating to even your family, people started now getting depressed because of you, to take care of you, so it's quite a very complex, big thing. And then, few who manage, to accept what has happened and integrate it into their mind and started to move on, then how are we prepared also as a society now to accommodate them, including simple things like crossing a road? And you find somebody really is struggling with his or her calipers to cross the road, and as impatient as we are, you hoot to the guy. And instead of being patient to allow him, to move, amamsaidia to cross, and things like that. Our public, vehicles or public sector is terrible. there's no provision for those with disabilities too. And sometimes, those who have managed to go up, the seats were so squeezed, and you have your calipers. When they break, when others take off, you cannot, So all these things is what, when we have to engage with NTSA and they report that they're launching, we have to really look at how are all those things were addressed, and how are they linking it with, traffic, and like technology. For example, he mentioned Daktari here. Like if you go to this developed world, your license is already digitized. So if you ruka taa, it will be reflected on your license, and then without you knowing, your license can be revoked. Yes. So we want to see such kind of synergy between police and NTSA and others, that if you ruka, reflect kwa license yako automatic, and then when a police checks now using maybe QR code or other maybe digital facilities, you don't deserve to be on the road. Then you are removed. Those are the things that we want to see how we can address to minimize the kill.
Harun, we need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll start with you, Razila, because there are so many misconceptions and so many misbeliefs that Kenyans are having, especially now that you're having two sort of agencies on the road. We have the National Police Service and the National Transport and Safety Authority. One of the widespread misconception is that a police officer cannot access my vehicle. Right, and you have heard of it, and we'll be discussing about it. But we continue with that discussion on tragedies on the road, and really today this is a discussion about action plan moving forward, how to reduce, because the numbers are high every year, and they're not just numbers. These are lives. These are people's breadwinners in homes. These are fathers, mothers, children, and aunties, uncles, friends who lose their lives. Others are really injured and get to disability out of road accidents. So once we come back, we shall be trying to get how to solve this, and solve this once and for all. You're watching AM Live. My name is Ibrahim Karanja.
Utangoja hadi lini? Utatafuta hadi lini? Avoid hassle ya kuchagua the right driving school. You deserve better. Welcome to AA Driving School, where thousands of confident drivers have graduated since 1962. We have qualified driving instructors, so no matter your preference, AA Kenya is here to ensure you become a skilled and competent driver. AA Kenya, inspiring mobility.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Africa's growth and development is hinged on its ability to harness the full potential of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Realization of the ambitious Agenda 2063 requires leveraging emerging technologies to boost efficiencies and optimize the potential of the youth labor market. This Thursday, 16th November 2023, to set the stage for the 5th edition of the Kusi Ideas Festival, NTV will host Nation Leadership Forum to discuss Agenda 2063 and the road ahead. Tune in from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
Solve the issue with my shifts. I'm tired of being here catching all the work.
I can't answer all your questions at once. Enough. The meeting's over. We go back to work now.
Fine. A long meeting that took our entire break.
I do for the rest of my life. With all that I have, I do. And
and people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Na wewe unaitwa aje? Mi naitwa Shiro.
Shiro, wewe weka pesa zako wapi?
Zangu naekanga hapa ndani. Ndio hizi pesa zangu.
Makubwa haya.
Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation lina jukumu la kulinda pesa zako kwenye benki.
All right, you're watching M Live here on NTV, and we continue with that discussion on tragedies on the roads, road safety, carnage, and remembering the victims. And today I have a panel of people who are experts in this particular field. I have Dr. Duncan Kibogong, the Deputy Director, Road Safety and Strategies at the NTSA. I equally have Dr. Rezila Onyango, the spokesperson of the National Police Service, and Harun Maalim Hassan, the Executive Director of the National Council of Persons Living with Disability. And Rezila, there's this conversation that we were having earlier, and most people believe, and perhaps it's time to set the record straight, including some legal minds who said that a police officer cannot access your vehicle. We have seen fights come out of this, where a police officer flags down a vehicle and they want to access or even make an arrest and drive. So perhaps make it clear, is this in place in law where Dr. Rezila may flag down my vehicle and even drive it?
Yes, it is there. I was just referring to my notes. I know it is there, Traffic Act, is it 105, that section of the law. It doesn't just give the leeway to traffic officers, but any police officer. They can get into your vehicle and cause you to drive it, maybe to the police station, or they can drive it, because you can.
They are allowed to actually drive it.
It's in the law. Let me read for you what the law says. It shall be lawful under the Traffic Acts for any uniformed officer to stop any vehicle, and for any police officer, licensing officer or inspector to enter, drive, or cause to be driven that vehicle. Because it's for purposes of inspection, they will do that. Of course, they won't drive it to their homes. They need to drive it to the police station. So we just need to sensitize the public that officers, that's what the Act says. Yeah.
And then many, one would ask, what if an officer drives my vehicle and when it's them on the wheels, it gets into an accident? Then who compensates in this particular case?
The law will take its course. Yeah, the law will take its course. But the thing, and Dr. Kibogom, you can confirm, it's in the Traffic Act. Yeah, they're supposed to drive it to the police station. So the idea of the members of public being hostile to the police when they are get into their vehicle to drive to the police station, is not just the traffic police. Any police officer can do that in uniform. Yeah.
So when you see the apprehension
Yes.
that Kenyans have, we always have clips, police officers and drivers in conflict. When you see the apprehension, because we have also taken police officers as enemies on the road. Anytime in fact, when police officers mount a roadblock or somewhere along the road, road users will indicate to each other that, you know what, slow cops are on just some few meters away. Then what does it say of our society and readiness to curb such high numbers that we are seeing in road accidents?
It goes back to the earlier conversation that we have had here, that we cannot leave matters road safety to the government. The government, even if you just take the police alone, and earlier I said, you also can't leave the matters of road safety to one government agency. This is a multi-sectoral issue. And therefore, if we will be obeying the traffic rules because police officers have mounted a roadblock, or we are, because of the technology, which is good, we are able to signal our fellow drivers, oh, there are police officers ahead, or there is the speedometer being taken, the action is going on somewhere along the road, then it is wrong. Kenyans must have just a simple attitude that your safety and my safety are important on the road. And we just behave properly. I said at the beginning, it's a lot of attitude to do with this. Why should it be a police issue that when the police are there, that's when people should behave properly? In any case, there is no country that can have enough law enforcement officers to be on the road. However much you want to deploy, we won't recruit enough and deploy them on traffic. So it's really like we used to say in security, that your security starts with you. You have to partner with the police so that you help the police to enforce the laws better. It's a concerted effort, and it's not just about the government, it's about the members of public working very closely with the law enforcement agencies so that we have better service delivery to the people of Kenya and improve on the safety on the road, because as we've already said the conversation here, we are dealing with life here. We are losing lives on circumstances which are avoidable. And so we just have to be more proactive that we don't want this thing to go on. Now we are approaching the Christmas season, the festive season of December. You're going to see an upsurge, and we hope, and I would really appeal to Kenyans at this point that let's just know that we will reach home. And we need to reach home wherever we are going for the holidays. But we have to behave properly on the road. There is no need of rushing, people driving carelessly, people driving overloading, people are driving dangerously on the road, and then we are having so many unnecessary crashes, so that the statistics keeps on showing when we have the festive seasons, the numbers are spiking up. It's a narrative that we need just to change. Yes.
Duncan, talk to us about funding at the NTSA, because most of the in terms of implementing the action plan that is coming, and in terms of ensuring that indeed the agency is effective, funding is a key issue. Are there challenges in funding, especially the agency? And you sit at a position where you can speak about this. And how then can Parliament, agencies like Parliament which are involved in budgeting and allocation of resources, then come in to assist the agency?
Yes, thank you so much. I'll start it this way, that definitely when it comes to matters resources, and funding being one of it, it's always limited. And that cuts across board government, even non-government institutions, like even in the media here with NTV, I'm sure funding and financing can never be enough for. You'd always wish to have more. But I'll put it this other way around so that I bring that into context. One, road traffic crashes in this country is estimated to cost about 5 to 6% of our GDP. And that's quite a huge figure. If you do that, Kenya's GDP, and you do 5% of it, that translates to over 450 billion Kenya shillings. So every year, road traffic issues, basically takes away 450 billion Kenya shillings. That is quite huge, in fact. And this is something which is been noted globally, that if you do global, we are talking about 3% of the global GDP, 3 to 5%. In other countries, it goes even up to 10%. But averagely, if you average the best of the countries and the worst of the countries, you're talking about 3% of global GDP. And that runs into trillions of dollars. So in Kenya, we lose up to 450 billion Kenya shillings. What that means is that it's important to reduce that drain to the economy, drain to the Republic of Kenya. And how that means is that we need to invest more on matters of road safety. So yes, the finances are there, and this is one of the things, in fact, in our National Road Safety Action Plan, some of the things which is there is that we need to work towards having sustainable financing on matters of road safety. When I say road safety, it's different from NTSA. As I said, road safety is a shared responsibility. The enforcement agency here is, if you ask her the same question, she'll answer, I'm sure, she'll probably answer the same, that the funding is not enough. And indeed, that is across board. So we need to put matters in investment on road safety to be on their side, so that we reduce, because if you, in fact, there's been statistics show that for every investment, 1 shilling you put into road safety, you save up to 10 shillings, even probably going to 20, depending on the interventions. What that means is that it's high time, rather than losing a lot, and Kenyan families having to pay bills, what Executive Director talked about here, disability, which is increasingly become a bigger problem to the society, among others. So we need to invest more on road safety. So yes, the financing is not good, and indeed part and parcel of that is working with the structures of government, including allocation of financing from the executive, at the same time working with the legislature to see towards ensuring that we have sustainable, and that brings some of the issues like the fuel levy, that among others. So financing, yes, is a challenge, but we work with what we have. But we really look forward to people behaving well so that we don't need to spend a lot of money on chasing you, on trying to run around with you, and trying to buy so many cars for the police to go for you. So yes, we can really cut down on the road safety financing, but for now, the finance, of course, the funding is something which we really work around.
Around August, was it August of this year?
Yes.
We saw a multi-sectoral road safety operation. Involved the NTSA,
correct,
the police that included the DCI and the KRA. What achievements would you mention?
Yes, we've always had a multi-sectoral approach, and indeed, government is one. We may be having different names by different agencies, but you'll be...
You're all government.
It's only one government, and we do things for one person called a Kenyan, the Kenyan public. So yes, part of the things we do is that we pull our strengths together as government agencies. Some are good, because of their mandates, do enforcement. Others we keep data. Others on education. Others on investigation. And that's why the multi-agency approach is one of the areas we always... You'll see it quite a lot. We are working towards December into January. And forward we have what you call multi-agency operations run across the country. And as we said, we really want to ensure that... So yes, achievements, if you check the numbers around those periods of time, the speeding rates have gone down, the helmet wearing rates have gone up, the drink driving issues have gone down, and this is something we'd always want to do, and indeed as part and parcel of the action plan, and indeed as part and parcel of the all government approach to national issues, is that this is going to be a all year round affair, not just one-off. So yes, the outputs are there, and indeed it is showing results.
Harun, you mentioned very important and legit points. One, crossing points for persons living with disability. This is something that may need a lot of partnership between the NCPWD and lawmakers as well as agencies. Talk about Kenha, Kura, so that there are designated points. And as you're speaking, I was thinking of a road like Thika Road, or say Wayaki Way, and how difficult it would be for you on a wheelchair to cross such a road. Yes, there are footbridges, but they're not designed in a way that you can access it. So have you presented this to the relevant agencies, and what commitment are they? Are they making any undertaking to ensure that they accommodate persons living with disabilities?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to take you a little back in history. On the flip side, quote unquote, the gains road accident might have brought us also. You know, the Disability Act that created National Council for Persons with Disability was an act of 2003. And if you remember very well, President Kibaki was on a wheelchair temporarily.
Sure.
That time, millions of Kenyans with disabilities who have been really struggling to have a law to be put in place took advantage of that, and they really rushed and petitioned, the executive, and that's how the old good Mzee, because he's living there temporarily, so the wise that this thing need to be enacted. That time I was not using a wheelchair. I have no idea the challenges that wheelchair brings to people, or the difficulties they go through. And the act, when it was now enacted and created National Council, raft of gains came up, including now how to sensitize Kenyans to be an inclusive society. Openly, the conversation around disability become more active, right from that aspect of charity to a human right agenda. So 20 years ago, literally, we were not talking open like we are now talking from the right perspective.
Sure.
But as the Tari say, multi-sectorial, because all of us are government, we have a role to play in all these important conversation. But then the question you can ask is these synergies of multi-sectorial really bearing fruits? Are the numbers of those who are becoming disabled because of road accident, or the numbers of those who have died or who are injured, are they going down? If it's not going down, even though there are some gains and some achievement, but why? So where can we really interrogate? For example, you mentioned the crossing point and things like that. Personally, a while back we were just speaking, the bumps on the road, those are crazy. They need to be removed.
And there is actually a question about the bumps. Someone suggests that they need to be removed and the country needs to get to international
sometimes it is not clearly marked. the cars come speed, and then, you know, you hold in the car, you know. Why not introduce those, you know, what's called ripples, you know, at a distance, and then at an interval. Then somebody can be conscious that maybe it is a school, it is a crossing point, it is a pedestrian crossing area, you know. Then all of a sudden you fly out, you know. So those entities need to do that, and how can we in the multi-sectoral engagement, you know, try, you know, to work on it. And then when we are designing roads, are we just designing our roads just for purpose of compliance and ticking a box that there is a disability inclusion here? Because as a country, not only the Disability Act, the constitution that comes after the act put the right of persons with disability right at the center. And then there is Convention of the Right of Persons with Disability, UN Convention, which is part of laws of Kenya under Article 26. And in that, the focus is universal design. What universal design means in all our infrastructural engagement and other development is not having me in mind only, but something that all of us we can use together. A simple thing like a washroom, for example. If a wheelchair user uses, it's beautiful for everybody. It's big, it's spacious, it's nice. But when we are designing our roads, you know, how are we? You know, sometimes you find ramps that are too steep, you know. And what are our building engineers, architects, you know, trying to tell us, you know, if it is not conforming with the right, you know, standard? And how can we interrogate that? So that, you know, disability, Ibrahim, it's not about impairment of people. We always keep on saying this. It's about the barriers across these people with different impairment. And how can we remove or greatly minimize those barriers? If someone is blind, his greatest or her greatest barrier is communication. If someone is deaf, maybe it's communication. But for someone like me, it's built environment.
Sure.
How are our environment organized? So if we don't address that, then there's no disability. Everybody can wake up, do his work, your work, you know, you go home just like anybody else. So when we are talking about this conversation about road traffic accident, well, we have earlier said that it contributes to disability. But those who are already with disability, what are their space in this conversation?
Sure.
That is the most important thing that we need to really, you know, interrogate. Like now on Sunday, we can tilt the conversation toward that, looking at a mother with disability crossing a road to her office, the time she takes.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and the impatient you are as a driver, because you are always on hurry.
True.
And you know, hata unapita nyuma yake disregarding even the traffic light. I think those are the things that we really need to bring. So as a council, all government departments and agencies report to us the extent of their disability compliance, literally. And we're trying to develop a framework now for ministries, department and agency, for county government and others. And in all this, we will also look at issues of infrastructure, issues of how sensitive are we in our programming, you know, including, you know, matters road safety and others, you know, going forward.
And when you come back to you, you'll tell us about the book you've written. You've written a book that even narrates on how to handle victims in a road accident if you're a first responder. But Razila, we're having a very candid conversation, and we have the NTSA here. Perhaps you may tell us what setbacks the police service has in ensuring, one, there is enforcement on the roads, and two, in the event of arrests and prosecution, what challenges or what setbacks are there in our judicial system that we are not getting? Well, because I would believe if we had very stiff punishments and penalties for carelessness on the road, then we will be woke. We'll be wary not to misbehave. Are there setbacks that the police are having that you may wish addressed by the agencies and even by the policy formulators and the lawmakers?
Yeah, it goes back again to the approach that we take as government agencies. We handle through the criminal justice system. We are under the NCAJ, the National Council on Administration of Justice. We work very closely with the ODPP so that the cases, we send our cases to the ODPP for charging. And,
but it is police officers who investigate.
The police are investigating. Yes, I'm coming there. But I'm giving you the bigger picture so that it doesn't look like it's a police work alone. Police investigation, what affects us a lot is the issue of transfer of officers. But again, there is a cushion to that. When we transfer an officer, maybe for a case which has gone on for a long time, we cushion that by transferring that file to the other officer so that we don't have a gap. But of course, it's only natural that if I've been running with a case for a long time, I should be able to see it to its conclusion. So that one, and then traffic officers also, we can never have enough. They're busy enforcing the law in the real time, then the investigator. So how do we cushion this moving forward, and how is it working in other jurisdictions within the service? Then we have those officers who are just dealing with investigations of the crash cases and the accident cases. But moving forward, capacity building is key. That we need to build more capacity, we need to have more officers that are doing that so that we reduce the pressure and the time that is taken by those officers who are doing the physical work vis-a-vis the ones who are doing the investigation. But coming from the traffic officers themselves, majority say, and we know it, that transfer is sometimes such a hindrance for them. But over and above all this, we work with the other criminal justice agency, the DPP, so that we have a better way of handling these cases. Yeah. Well,
and therein lies another problem. Yes, whereas we know most of the officers are doing a good job on the road, we cannot again shy away from the few elements who are painting the service in very bad light, and perhaps is the reason for hostilities between the public, the drivers, and the police service. You've heard of cases where a police officer would want to sort a case there locally, kienyeji, and this would mean chai, this would mean kitu kidogo and such. We have seen EACC move in to try and deal with this at some point, but it is not entirely out. As a service, how are you internally trying to sort out this? Because it's a menace that has been, it's historical.
Yeah, I know you just avoided to use the right word, corruption. The truth is, the Constitution is very clear on the mandate of the National Police Service. One of them is to strive for the highest standards of professionalism and discipline among its members. The other one is to prevent corruption. Now, as you've correctly put it, most officers are doing the right thing. Most police officers in this country, they are very dedicated. They are serving under very difficult circumstances. While you're busy sleeping so that you can come to your work at a certain time, there's a police officer who has not slept. And I can tell you the officers who work even straight 36 hours, non-stop, they've not slept. And so we have more than 90% that are doing the right thing at the right time and serving the country with a lot of selflessness and dedication. Those ones who are found in corrupt practices, whether they are on the roads, whether they are at the police stations, there is no police officer that is above the law. And that is why ours as the police service is to cooperate with the independent agencies, because the government has already invested so heavily on the independent agencies, and they are in the Constitution. We have the Internal Affairs Unit, which is under the police, but it's very independent, as the name says. We have the IPOA, they have to do their work. Then we have the EACC, which you've already mentioned. The much the police we can do is not to defend the wrong. And the Inspector General, the IG Com, is very categorical on this, and he's pronounced himself very clearly on this. Corruption in the police. Recently we had a meeting at the KSG, and the IG made it very clear, enough is enough. We don't deny that this practice is not there. And of course, it is not something that we are trained to do. There is no police college we go to be taught how to be corrupt. Yeah, so it is, nobody's above the law. If they are found, they go to court. Yeah, and we have so many officers. Maybe next time you ask for us to give you statistics of officers that we've taken to court.
Action against them.
Yes, yeah, for corrupt practices. Yeah.
All right, Duncan, what do we expect on Sunday?
Yes.
Just a brief overview and briefly.
Just to recap on Sunday. Sunday, this is the third Sunday of this November, and every other third Sunday of every November is been dedicated to road traffic victims in terms of commemoration, in terms of observance. So this Sunday, we have a number of activities across the country.
This in 30 seconds?
Yeah, we have a number of activities. The main event will be in Naivasha, and it will involve, of course, a procession. It will involve some people providing some poems, school children. You also have testimonials from victims who have been involved in road traffic crash. And there'll be, of course, some speeches by government and non-government, and probably a policy direction depending on the policy makers. But the whole idea is to remember road traffic victims, and it can take a prayer, it can take candle lighting, tree planting, basically so that we are in a mood of saying this thing is too much. We need to do something about it.
We need to do something. Harun, perhaps in your 30 seconds, you can as well tell us, you have written a book, like I mentioned, what it entails and what you expect moving forward, sort of a call to action.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wrote this story from my own experience.
The book is titled Behind the
Behind
Wheels.
the Wheels, yes. And I was trying to tell my life before disability, my painful transition into the world of disabilities, and also now living in disability, what it really means. So perfectly puts me right in the middle of having experience on this side and experience on this side. And in this book, when I was transitioning, I made also special focus on the conversation that we are having today on matters, road safety, road accident, and the role all of us can play, with a special emphasis on first aid basis as a crucial item. Because sometimes when something happened to us, like I earlier said, people come and steal even from us instead of even rescuing you even. In part of Nairobi, a friend told me he was conscious and he was waiting for it, but people were busy searching his pocket, taking his mobile, It's very interesting.
And very sad. And
very sad. So, but in that process, this person requires a support. But do we really understand that first aid mechanism of not worsening,
exacerbating the condition?
Yeah, the condition. So I think this story is more of bringing such kind of a conversation and the role that we can play.
All right. Razila, 30 seconds, closing comment from the perspective of the National Police Service.
Mine is to, on behalf of the National Police Service, to tell the public that police are not your enemies. We are here to serve you. Our work is clear that we serve and protect, and we are very much dedicated to the role that we have been given by the Constitution. But matters road safety should not be left to one government agency, nor to the government alone. We all, as Kenyans, must really take this as our responsibility so that we improve the safety on our roads.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Razila Onyango, the police spokesperson, National Police Service, who has been with us for about the past 2 hours. We've also had Harun Maalim Hassan. My brother is called Hassan as well. Harun Maalim Hassan, the Executive Director, National Council for Persons Living with Disability, as well as Dr. Duncan Kibogong, the Deputy Director, Road Safety and Strategies at the National Transport and Safety Authority. A very insightful conversation that we've had this morning and a call to action, and I hope at home you have had a reason to change your behavior, because most of this is behavioral, like we mentioned. And that's why we bring to a close AM Live this morning on behalf of the entire team at the gallery under the directorship of Jackso, Blackjack, and Mabel, and the entire team that is behind there. I'm not able to mention all their names. Thank you very much for choosing NTV, and do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Your World is up next with Zainab Ismail.